This is a real event in the pre-dawn blackness of February 25, 1942, less than 3 months after the world-shattering attack on Pearl Harbor, the city of Los Angeles, a metropolis already humming with a constant, low-grade fear of invasion, was ripped from its uneasy sleep. At 1:44 a.m., military radar stations picked up an unidentified target 120 miles to the west, tracking it as it closed with the coast. By 2:15 a.m., the object was a mere handful of miles offshore. The city's air raid sirens, newly installed and tested with a grim frequency, unleashed their terrifying, undulating wail across the basin, from the San Fernando Valley to Long Beach. A city of 3 million people was plunged into a mandatory blackout, a disorienting darkness punctuated only by the distant, rhythmic crash of the Pacific surf. For the next several hours, a drama of profound and unsettling mystery unfolded in the skies. It would come to be known as the Battle of Los Angeles, a name that implies a conflict between two understood terrestrial forces. The reality was something far stranger. This was not a battle, it was a siege against the unknown. At 3:16 a.m., the men of the 37th Coast Artillery Brigade were given the order to open fire. 8 massive searchlight beams, like pale, probing fingers, sliced through the coastal haze and converged on a single, slow-moving object high above Santa Monica. Eyewitness accounts, collected in the frantic aftermath by newspapers like the Los Angeles Times, were remarkably consistent. This was no Japanese bomber. It was not a known aircraft of any nation. It was described as a large, lozenge-shaped or circular object, moving with an unnerving, deliberate slowness, utterly impervious to the maelstrom of anti-aircraft fire directed at it. For over an hour, the night sky above Los Angeles was transformed into a phantasmagoric spectacle of violence. The concussive booms of the 12 8-pound shells echoed off the Hollywood hills. Tracers stitched incandescent patterns across the dark canvas. The air filled with the acrid smell of cordite. In total, 1,440 rounds were fired into the sky. Shrapnel, hot and jagged, rained down on the darkened city below, damaging homes and businesses, and tragically, killing 3 civilians on the ground, with 3 more dying from heart attacks induced by the sheer terror of the event. The target, this silent, colossal anomaly, absorbed the barrage. It did not speed up, it did not retaliate. It did not fall, it simply endured, a silent and luminous testament to its own incomprehensible nature, before finally drifting south towards Long Beach and disappearing from view, and from radar, as mysteriously as it had arrived. The next morning, the official explanations began, and with them, the institutional obfuscation. Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox initially declared the entire incident a false alarm, a case of war nerves. His statement was a clumsy and immediate failure, insulting the intelligence of 1 million eyewitnesses who had seen the searchlights, the object, and the furious military response. The Army, whose men had fired the 1,440 shells, directly contradicted him. General George C. Marshall, in his own report to the President, suggested the incident was likely caused by commercial planes, used by enemy agents to sow psychological panic. The final, official verdict, released years later, settled on the most mundane and least believable of explanations, a lost weather balloon, magnified by the anxieties of the time. A weather balloon, an object that incited a full-scale military response, absorbed nearly 1,500 direct hits from high-explosive artillery shells, and was tracked on radar for hours. This explanation does not hold. It is a placeholder, a line of official text meant to close a file that refuses to stay shut. The mystery of the Battle of Los Angeles is not what was in the sky. The mystery is why the official story is so transparently false. What truth does it labor so desperately to conceal? The answer, it is theorized by a growing and fearful minority, is not that the event was a false alarm, but that it was a first, overt demonstration of power. It was not an attack, it was an arrival. And we have been living with the consequences, unknowingly, ever since. The beings who piloted that craft did not leave. They stayed, they observed, and then they integrated. The signs of their silent coup are not written in the sky with fleets of spacecraft. They are far more subtle, woven into the very fabric of our modern world. To see them, one must unlearn the habit of casual observation and adopt a state of vigilant analysis. What follows are 5 of the most chilling indicators that a non-human, reptilian intelligence is already in a position of global power, and the methods by which they can, with great difficulty and personal risk, be identified. The first and most intimate sign is a biological one, a subtle tell in the very machinery of the human form they have so expertly co-opted. It is known among researchers of this phenomenon as the unblinking gaze. The reptilian brain stem, which humans also possess, controls our most basic functions: breathing, heart rate, the fight or flight response. In a purely reptilian creature, it is the seat of a cold, predatory intelligence. While these entities have mastered the art of shape-shifting, creating a near-perfect biological facsimile of a human being, the mimicry is not without its flaws. The disguise is a technology, a cellular hologram projected over their true form, and like all technology, it can glitch. The most common glitch manifests around the eyes. The human act of blinking is a complex biological process, partially reflexive and partially subconscious, serving to lubricate and clean the cornea. The average human blinks approximately 15 to 20 times per minute. The entities, however, do not possess this reflex in the same way. Their ocular systems are different, often shielded by a nictitating membrane, a translucent third eyelid common in reptiles, birds, and sharks. While their human disguise simulates eyelids, the underlying instinct and neurological wiring are not there. As a result, they can be spotted by their unnaturally low blink rate. Watch videos of world leaders, media figures, or corporate titans during long, unedited speeches or interviews. Many of them will go 4 minutes at a time without a single blink, their gaze fixed with an intensity that is not human. It is not the focus of a determined person. It is the unmoving, predatory stillness of a lizard watching its prey. When they do blink, it is often a conscious, deliberate act, a social camouflage that appears slightly too slow or too forceful. Even more disturbing are the recorded glitches, moments captured on high-definition video where the disguise momentarily fails. For a single frame, a fraction of a second, the pupil of the eye seems to vertically slit, like a cat's, before snapping back to a round human shape. In other instances, a rapid, sideways flicker can be observed, a movement too fast to be a normal blink. This is believed to be the reflexive action of the nictitating membrane, the true reptilian eye covering, spasming beneath the holographic human shell. Spotting this requires careful, frame-by-frame analysis of footage. Dismissed by debunkers as digital artifacts or compression errors, these glitches occur with a disturbing frequency among the same global elite. To spot them, one must look for the absence of normal human behavior. Watch for the stillness. The cold, unblinking stare is a window, not to the soul, but to the alien consciousness wearing a human mask. The second sign is societal, a macro-level shift in human behavior and organization that betrays a fundamentally non-human intelligence at the helm. This is the logic of the hive. Human civilization, for all its flaws, has historically been driven by a messy, contradictory, and often inefficient blend of emotion, empathy, ambition, and tribalism. The new paradigm, which has accelerated rapidly over the last several decades, is one of cold, dispassionate, and brutal efficiency. It is a logic that prioritizes the system over the individual, data over compassion, and control over freedom. It is the logic of a hive, or more accurately, the clutch. Consider the modern multinational corporation. It is an entity that exists beyond national borders and human loyalties. Its sole directive is growth and consumption, operating with a machine-like logic that optimizes profit at any human or environmental cost. Decisions are not made by empathetic leaders, but by algorithms and predictive models, processes that are inherently cold-blooded. This is their influence made manifest. They have reshaped our economic systems to mirror their own psychology, predatory, expansionist, and devoid of sentiment. This hive logic extends into governance. The push towards globalism, the creation of supranational bodies that erode national sovereignty, the drive for digital identification systems, and the mass collection of data on entire populations are not merely trends. They are components of a planetary control grid. Human leaders, motivated by greed or fear, are easily manipulated into implementing these systems, which serve the ultimate goal of their hidden masters, a world that is predictable, manageable, and stripped of the chaotic variable of human free will. Empathy is a liability in this system. Individual suffering is a data point. Dissent is an error to be corrected. To spot this sign, one must observe the systems, not the people. Question why policies are enacted that seem to run counter to the well-being of the population. Notice the language used by those in power, a jargon of optimization, synergy, and data-driven solutions that dehumanize the issues at hand. The logic of the hive is present whenever you see a system that functions perfectly but serves no one's happiness. It is the sterile beauty of a circuit board, the flawless order of an ant colony. It is the architecture of a world designed not for humans, but for the things that now rule them. The third sign is geological and architectural, a chilling indicator of their physical presence right beneath our feet. This is the subterranean network. The beings are not of this world's surface. Their biology, it is theorized, is better adapted to the pressure and darkness environments. While they walk among us in disguise, their true civilization, their centers of power and technology, are not in our cities but below them. For decades, there have been whispers and anecdotal reports of vast, deep underground military bases, or DOMs, connected by high-speed maglev train systems. While often dismissed as folklore, the evidence is becoming harder to ignore. Strange seismic events, small, rhythmic earthquakes in areas with no known fault lines, are frequently reported near suspected locations. These are not natural geological adjustments. They are the vibrations of massive boring machines, of underground construction on a scale that dwarfs any surface-level human project. The technology to create these tunnels, a theorized nuclear-powered thermal borer that vitrifies the rock as it passes, leaving a smooth, of city-like tunnel wall, is far beyond our public sector capabilities. The most infamous example is the sprawling complex believed to exist beneath the Denver International Airport. The airport's construction was plagued by anomalies. It was built miles from the city at immense cost, on a piece of land far larger than necessary. Its budget spiraled out of control, and entire completed buildings were mysteriously buried, with new ones built on top, cited as construction errors. The official story is nonsensical. The more plausible explanation is that the airport's public-facing structure is a cover, a logistical hub for a massive, multi-level city deep below. The disturbing murals within the airport, depicting scenes of eco-fascist apocalypse and a new world order, are not art. They are a declaration, of both hidden in plain sight. To spot this sign, one must pay attention to the earth itself. Look for patterns in minor, unexplained seismic activity. Research local histories of massive, over-budget government or private construction projects in remote areas. Investigate clusters of sinkholes that appear with unnatural circularity and depth. The ground we stand on is no longer entirely our own. It has been hollowed out, repurposed. They are not coming from the stars anymore. They are rising from below. The constant, low-level construction noise that urban dwellers dismiss as the normal sounds of the city may, in fact, be the echo of a new world being built in the darkness beneath their homes. The fourth sign is auditory, a phenomenon that is both global and deeply personal. It is a sound that millions of people have heard, but few can identify, a maddening, pervasive noise known as the silent hum. In dozens of locations around the world, from Taos, New Mexico, to Bristol, England, to Windsor, Ontario, a significant percentage of the local population reports being able to hear a persistent, low-frequency hum. It is a sound on the very edge of human hearing, a droning, rumbling noise often compared to a distant diesel engine that never turns off. Scientific investigations have been launched, but they have all failed to identify a source. The sound is not traceable to any known industrial facility, power line, or geological process. It is often louder indoors than outdoors, and it seems to plague its hearers, leading to sleep deprivation, nausea, and severe psychological distress. The official explanation is that it is a form of mass tinnitus or a psychogenic delusion. But this fails to explain why the phenomenon is geographically clustered, or why only some people in those areas can hear it. The chilling theory is that the hum is not a byproduct, but a broadcast. It is the operational frequency of their vast subterranean technology, the vibration of their power sources and atmospheric processors leaking into our perceptible range. For those with a particular sensitivity to low-frequency sound, this global machine is not silent. It is a constant, oppressive presence. A more sinister interpretation suggests the hum is a form of mass psychotronic control. Low-frequency sound waves have been proven to affect human brainwaves, capable of inducing states of anxiety, depression, or suggestibility. The hum, in this context, is a planetary mood ring, a broadcast signal designed to keep the general population in a state of low-level anxiety and distraction, making them more docile and less likely to question the reality being constructed around them. Those who can hear it are not delusional. They are the canaries in the coal mine, their nervous systems inadvertently tuned to the frequency of our invisible prison. To spot this sign, one must learn to listen to the silence. In a quiet room, late at night, strain your hearing past the everyday noises. Listen for the sound beneath the sound, the low, throbbing bass line that the conscious mind is trained to ignore. It is the pulse of the machine. It is the background music to our subjugation. And for a select, unlucky few, it is a sound that can never be turned off. The fifth and final sign is the most abstract and existentially terrifying. It is an attack not on our bodies or our planet, but on our very reality. It is the purge of memory. This phenomenon is most commonly known by its colloquial name, the Mandela effect, a term coined to describe the shared, false memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. But it is not a single, isolated incident. It is a systemic and ongoing process. Countless people share distinct, specific memories of a past that demonstrably never existed. They remember the Bernstein Bears book series being spelled Bernstein. They recall a movie where a comedian named Sinbad played a genie. They remember a famous movie line as Luke, I am your father, when it was, in fact, no, I am your father. The simple explanation is mass, coincidental misremembering. The more complex and terrifying explanation is that our timeline is not stable. It is being actively and subtly edited. The reptilian entities, having mastered physics to a degree we cannot comprehend, are not merely living among us. They are retroactively tidying up their trail. They are making small, seemingly insignificant changes to the past, smoothing over inconsistencies, and altering shared cultural touchstones. Why change the spelling of a children's book? It is a test, a low-stakes alteration to gauge the elasticity of human memory and perception. When the population simply accepts the new reality, writing off their own clear memories as a mistake, it proves the method is effective. The ultimate goal is to erase larger historical truths. The Battle of Los Angeles itself is a prime target. The memory of that event has been systematically degraded, reduced from a citywide paranormal encounter to a footnote about a weather balloon. How long before all records of the event are altered? How long before the eyewitness accounts are gone, and anyone who remembers it is told they are merely remembering a scene from a science fiction movie that never existed? This is Jiao's most powerful weapon. It is not a death ray, but a reality editor. They are achieving control not just over the present and future, but over the past as well. They are ensuring that there will be no history of their takeover to be discovered, because that history is being unwritten, one tiny, insignificant detail at a time. To spot this sign is the most difficult task of all. It requires an absolute trust in one's own memory, even when the world, in all of its records, screams that you are wrong. It requires one to notice the seams, the tiny glitches in the matrix, the moments when you are certain of a fact that has suddenly ceased to be true. It is the ultimate form of gaslighting, performed on a species-wide scale. The evidence is not in one place. It is everywhere, a mosaic of chilling possibilities. A flicker in a politician's eye. A corporate policy that values data over lives. A strange rumbling from deep within the earth. A persistent, maddening hum. A memory of a world that is no longer the world you live in. These are the signs. They are the fingerprints of an intelligence that is cold, patient, and utterly alien. They have not conquered us with ships and lasers. They have conquered us with stealth, with manipulation, and with a slow, methodical erosion of our reality. The question is no longer are they coming? They are here. The question is no longer how do we fight them? Their control may already be too absolute. The Battle of Los Angeles was not the beginning of a war. It was the public announcement of its end. We are living in the occupation. And the final, most chilling thought is not that they are hiding. The signs are becoming more frequent, more blatant. The glitches in the disguise are more common. The logic of the hive is now the overt policy of nations. The harm is being reported in new cities every year. This suggests a change in strategy. It suggests they are moving from a phase of covert infiltration to one of open consolidation. They are no longer as concerned with maintaining the illusion, perhaps because they have determined it is no longer necessary. We have been conditioned to ignore the evidence of our own senses. Last week, during a live, globally televised address from a chamber of international power, a world leader, speaking of unity in a new, efficient global order, was seen to have his jaw momentarily unhinged, standing sideways in a way that is anatomically impossible for a human. It was on screen for less than half a second. It was noted by a few, who were quickly shouted down on social media as cranks and conspiracy theorists, accused of using doctored footage. The broadcast continued. The speech was applauded. The world kept turning. If they are no longer afraid of being seen, what comes next?